one slide on the legal and regulatory issues that arise from this, which are more fascinating than they sound like. For example, you would think that it's mostly to do with safety, probably is, but there's all kinds of other rules there. So just to give you, to get to wet your beak on a little bit of this, autonomous traffic will be sharing the road with human traffic at some point. It already is, actually. I noticed the other day I was driving back from somewhere, and I went through an extremely heavily coned area with a lot of temporary traffic lights, and I let the car do what it could do. And it got to the point where I was like, man, anybody observing me would have no idea that it's not me driving. And I wonder how that would make them feel. It will get more extreme soon, in the sense that multiple vendors, probably Zoox, which will be mostly probably used for sort of Amazon deliveries, probably Waymo as their HD maps expand, and most likely Tesla as their fleet gets to the point where they can actually start rolling this out everywhere. Several things happen. One is you will get to a point where a subsection of the human fleet is much, much safer and can operate much more quickly than the human-driven traffic. Do you at that point have separate lanes or even separate highways for autonomous traffic? And how do you regulate that? Do you instead try and have them all still bunched together, knowing that eventually autonomous is going to outscale human as a form of adoption? That's already happening. If you just look at the growth in autonomous capable cars, it's obviously on the way up, which means that human capable is on the way down. Then there's the other problem raised by Waymo, and that is, well, if you're ring fenced to a certain, even quite large geographical map area where we know that this works and we've got legal agreement in that area, how do you get across the state? Or how do you get from A to B if only a section of that journey is something that we know that that car can do? It's almost like running out of road on the way to somewhere, and how challenging that would be. So there's going to be some interesting questions about, do you have to force the allowance of human intervention to still be something using a particular hardware or a particular company until we have either HD maps everywhere or it's generalizable in all circumstances? You have to have that approach that, you know, we're gonna have to let you take over, and that's gonna need to be okay. You're gonna still have to be insured in that way. And then there are other legal hurdles. For example, in the States, if I were to have bought my car in the States, it will be able to execute a hairpin turn by itself. It will not do that on the roads of Yorkshire. The angle has been restricted by actually what was a European rule. I think it no longer counts after Brexit. But it says clearly on the car knows that there's a bend coming. It says, be ready to take over, because I can't do this. I can't go over a certain angle. More generally, there will be differing autonomous tech adoption allowances across different parts of the world, sometimes by country, which raises very interesting things for the EU, where there are multiple states may well drive through more than one. I've done that before. What if you suddenly drive into a nation where the rules are very, very different on that, anywhere in the world, or even a state?
This isn't a trivial problem. I went on a journey relative couple of years ago when I drove out of France and into Germany and then back again, I think over the course of the same road. It was about 30 seconds. Another example, driving along the border between Spain and France, where one side of the road is Spain and the other side is France. Now, these are not trivial problems.
So imagine you're able to go to one location autonomously, but if you're driving back along that same road, I'm sorry, there's different rules.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. Yeah. And then lastly here, obviously, if there is an accident, there was one 2 days ago involving a Tesla car. The chap, unfortunately, was not in the driver's seat, so it was being treated like a self-driving car. They are not. Multiple warnings of any of the vendors will tell you that. Once we adopt autonomous as being for sure safer than humans, which is some time away but will happen, because we only have 2 cameras, those things can have multiple cameras and compute quicker than we can think. When there is an accident or there's damage to a car and there's no human fatalities, let's hope, who is responsible? Is it the car? That raises some very interesting questions. I think it probably will be the car, but it then means that the car is taking insurance out and not you. Fascinating. And then lastly, what do you do if you end up with the trolley problem? The trolley problem, if anybody is unfamiliar, is a fascinating one. There is a trolley coming down a hill. like a car that's mounted on rails, and you have the ability to pull the switch to make it turn to either A or B location. Location A has 1 person, and location B has 10. Which one do you choose? Similarly, if you are in a self-driving car and it has to be forced into a crash situation, does it try and preserve your life? Does it try and preserve the life of people on the road? Is there some calculus involved with the number of lives? What about property? This is as yet unsolvable because we haven't quite got to that point. I would like to believe that we can engineer that out completely as a problem, but this is just some of the examples of the complexity of regulation that do face us. As Mike says, they are not just niceties of debate. These will be how we build the 21st century.